Lauren Schaller here, and I am reviewing a Google Doc for accessibility and differentiation. So let's begin with, let me first preface this by saying this, I chose this particular Google Doc. I think it would be a good fit. The students received this Google Doc as an assignment in Schoology, and they had to fill out all of the orange fields using a virtual lab. So the virtual lab was from this thing called Gizmos, and the website service itself, the Gizmos, actually created the Google Doc, and this was technology that we purchased in the science department, and this was part of the reason for it. So this is generated, and we can go in and edit it however we want to make it what we want, but we get this starting place. So I thought it would be extra good to analyze for that reason, and the students play around with the virtual lab here, and then they get their directions, and then they write their responses here in this Google Doc. So if we first look at the Online Accessibility Handbook Guidelines, I took a look at the headings and realized when I highlighted it, and I didn't even know it was a hyperlink at first, when I went into headings and saw that it was not, if we do this, we see it changes. So it's not actually a heading number 1. It had to be changed to that. And I clicked through and looked at the subheadings then and noted that they were also very, very small, and they don't fit the text size for the secondary heading. So it's a fail here on the heading sizes, and there are different sections, as you can see, but they don't quite match the criteria. There are some images. Now these are screenshots from the simulation that kind of lets the student know that they're in the right place when they are doing the simulation while filling this out, but it does not have any alternative text. So that was not done for this assignment. And lists, you can see the questions are listed by number. Each section starts with the number 1 again. And for the most part, it's okay, but there are some that are missing. You can see here at number 7, draw conclusions. There are a couple of different questions, and you can see this one is kind of just underneath of this question, so they're not numbered, so it's not perfect. Links, there really is just one link at the top, but it's not really labeled. It's not really descriptive. If we click on it, we can see that this pops up underneath of it, this little window, but the link itself, it's not very clear that it's a link. You just figure it out by clicking on it, so it's not really labeled. The table order, there's a couple of tables in this document that the students are filling out. And the reading order is okay. I did notice that between the prediction and the results for each section, there's no line differentiating, and I think that confused some of the students. That might have been hard for them to see. So I think it would have been better to have added a line or a visible line at least between these two, so that the students kind of understood better what they had to fill out. But it does read from left to right and top to bottom. We can see this is for all the grass, these are for all the snakes counting, and then this is the change and the prediction of that change and the result of the change that was made in the simulation. The color, I think that according to UDL, I'm sorry, not UDL, but the orange, and I did warn the students in advance, like, look at the orange sections, that's where you're typing, but I think it's a little too light. So I think that this might not be, it's a kind of a darkish orange, but it could be a little darker. But the fact that I was using color alone to communicate where they were filling in information, although they could just look for the empty boxes, might not have been enough. So I think it might have been a better choice to modify all these boxes and make the lines maybe more of a dotted line. So I could say, find all the boxes that have dotted lines, and that's where you're typing in your info. So I could have used that differently. Looking at UDL standards guidelines, when it comes to representation, I think there could have been a nice glossary added to this. Now, I was afraid to add more to this document because I feel like if it's too long, kids are going to get discouraged. So, but it might have been nice to have a little glossary at the beginning kind of guiding them what was coming up in this document, because it is almost 4 pages long. I noticed there was accessibility settings in here, but I didn't have this turned on. So I think I need to turn these on in order to help the kids out, and I did not have it turned on. Pre-teaching, was that incorporated? There are prior knowledge questions, and I do explain the concepts to the students, knowing that they're doing this assignment when I assign it to them. So I did pre-teach these concepts, and there are also little pieces of information throughout the document. Some vocab words are explained so that you can see that in this section. There is some chunking. There are different sections, and it's made clear, okay, in activity A, you're going to be investigating predator-prey relationships, and I think I cut out and then I left a little bit of activity B to show that you're going to be doing something a little different in this section. So it's kind of chunked. When it comes to expression, they could only really reply with text here. Now, they could, if they had wanted to, they could have printed this out and handed it to me handwritten, but I did not advertise that to them. I did not explain to them, hey, this is a different way that you could submit this. And they could have, we could have Zoomed, and they could have, instead of submitting this by writing, explained their answers to me. But I didn't exactly push that or advertise it or really offer it up as a possibility. So I could have done better with that, and maybe even typed it at the top of the document, say, there a different way to submit this assignment, and I could have pitched that. There's no checklist here, so it kind of fails at that. Different models of expression, I think that is achieved with this document and what is meant by the assignment to go into the simulation. Concepts are explained, but then they're also shown in the virtual lab. You get to see the cause and effect of making decisions on these populations in the ecosystem. For engagement, students didn't really get a lot of choices in this. There are other exercises similar to this with other simulations, virtual labs, where students do get to choose. They have a little more leniency in what they can do with the simulation, and then their answers would be different based on that. It's not very personalized, though. There's not much that's about them in this. I would say it's authentic in a way. It's fake, but it's also based on reality. So this is like a real food chain that you would see. There really weren't opportunities for collaboration in this, although I could have assigned it that way. But there are some prompts for independence, because the students are meant to navigate the virtual lab on their own. So the assistance is offered in here, and there's also in the Gizmo website, there's several areas where students can receive help technologically, and some helpers on some of the content. So getting to the Rice reading, chapter 8, I will say that originally this Google Doc, as it was generated by this company, was originally like much larger. It was over 5 pages, and I went through and I did shorten it. So it is good to shorten assignments, but I did not make specific accommodations for different students on shortening it, or make anything language about that in here. I did take completion into account when it comes to grading, because some of these questions are predicting questions and prior knowledge questions. So, sometimes, as long as you were showing some thought, there is a lot of prediction actually, and, for completion. So that would count for completion, and that's coming right out of tier 1. When it comes to tier 2, I did not activate those accessibility tools that I mentioned earlier, but I would have accepted handwritten, and if they had spelling errors, I did not take off points for spelling on this one. I usually don't. And when it comes to tier 3, I could have used text-to-speech and speech-to-text and enabled the accessibility there, so I could have done better there. But there is, as I mentioned earlier, some extra assistance available in the virtual simulation in of itself. That I think is it for my accessibility analysis of this Google Doc. Thanks for listening.